Night in Edo has a texture. It is not silent, the city never truly sleeps, but inside the shrine compounds, the air grows dense, layered with incense, river, wind, and the faint tremble of flames behind paper screens. The halls are so wide they seem hollow, and when a single footstep echoes, it feels like memory crossing wood. A girl walks with a lantern held close to her chest. The flame paints her face in strokes of gold, turning her features into something half real, half shadow. Her hands are blackened with soot. The sleeves of her white robe are stiff from old oil. She moves as carefully as breath, weaving through columns older than her lineage. She kneels. The lantern's glass glows warm against her cheek. She trims a wick with scissors the size of a sparrow's beak. The flame steadies. She works alone, though 5 women across the shrine compound are doing nearly the same thing at this hour. They are the Lantern Maidens, caretakers of the night, women who keep the shrine alive when the city sleeps. Their work is unseen, uncelebrated, but without them, the sacred flame would die, and with it, the calm that protects the city. Tonight, we follow their quiet hours, their rituals, their shadows, their exhaustion, their strange intimacy with fire. This is the story of 5 Night Lantern Maidens, the women who burn their lives to keep Edo's shrines lit. Her name is Yai. At least, that is what the priest calls her when assigning duties. Most visitors never hear it. They only see a flash of her white robe at dawn, when she returns from the outer posts, cold, damp, and trembling. She works where the shrine meets the world. The open-air lanterns along the perimeter paths, the stone toro half buried in moss, the wooden stands exposed to wind and rain. These lanterns guard the thresholds. They mark the boundary between sacred ground and the city's restless energy. Each night, Yai walks the perimeter carrying a small box of tools, wicks wrapped in rice paper, a jar of thick lamp oil, a cloth for wiping soot from the stone mouths of lanterns. But the weather is her real enemy. Wind snuffs flames without warning. Rain drowns them. Foxes knock lantern posts askew. Drunken passers-by spill sake, shout prayers, or test their courage by blowing at the flames. Yai's feet sink into muddy paths. Her toes numb through thin tabi socks. Her robe becomes heavy with dew, clinging cold to her skin. Some nights she returns with small cuts from thorny bushes or bruises from slipping on uneven stones. Still, she relights every flame. Visitors who come in the morning assume the lanterns simply burn all night on their own. They never imagine the girl hunched behind a stone pedestal in the dark, shielding the wick with her hands, whispering to the fire to hurry awake before wind takes it again. To her, the flame is not spirit or decoration. It is responsibility. If it dies, she feels she has failed the space, failed the gods, failed the quiet that holds Edo together. When she finally returns to the central hall before dawn, her hair smells of smoke and wet leaves. She bows before the main altar, fingers numb, breath shaky, and waits for the next bell. Her shift doesn't end. It simply repeats. Her name is Kinu, and she is 12. Too young for the outer boundaries, too old to be kept from work. She is given the job no one else requests, sleeping in the lantern hall. Not a proper sleep, a half sleep, the kind where one ear remains awake. The lantern hall is the shrine's beating heart. Dozens of suspended lamps glow warm like floating moons. The air is thick with heat, smoke, and the sweet tang of burnt cotton. Kinu lies on a straw mat near the center, wrapped in a thin blanket that protects her from nothing. One side of her body is always too warm from the flames, the other always too cold from the drafts sneaking through old wooden walls. When she turns, soot flakes from her blanket in black snowflakes. Her lungs ache. She coughs a dry, hollow sound. But she never complains. Her task is simple in theory. If any lantern begins to dim, she must rise, pull herself from sleep, trim the wick, refill the oil, and keep the hall lit until dawn. In practice, it means waking 10, 15, even 20 times a night. Kinu moves through the hall like a small ghost. Bare feet, loose hair, a little jar of oil tucked into her sleeve. She touches each lantern gently, as though afraid of startling it awake. Sometimes, she dreams. She dreams of walking through a forest of flames, each one calling her by name. But the dream never lasts. A flicker in the distance pulls her back to consciousness. When morning comes, the senior maidens find her curled on her mat, face streaked with soot, the blanket so warm from hours of fire that it releases heat into the crisp morning air. She is the shrine's youngest worker, but without her, the shrine would spend every night blind. Her name is Sayo. She married at 16, widowed at 22, and entered shrine service at 26. She is now 38 old for a maiden, yet unmatched in her precision. Her hands work like prayers. She handles soot as if it were silk, wiping each lantern with slow circular motions, never rushing, never exhaling too hard. She trims wicks with a surgeon's calm. She pours oil without spilling a drop. She replaces cracked paper screens with fingers steady as winter branches. Her body pays the price. Her knuckles are swollen, her shoulders ache, her eyes redden from smoke each night. But she works with the dignity of someone who knows her labor is more than maintenance. Sayo believes in the flame the way others believe in scripture. She thinks of her late husband as she polishes, her mind weaving light into memory. Villagers whisper that she carries grief like a shrine, carries smoke, visibly, quietly, without collapse. Sayo's ritual is simple but relentless. Polish the glass, polish the wooden frame, polish the copper fittings until they reflect the faintest ember. Each night, her cloth turns darker. Each morning, her lanterns turn brighter. She never asks for lighter duties. Fire, she says, is the only thing that answers back. Her name is unknown. Some call her the Ash Woman. Others avoid addressing her at all. She works at the back of the shrine complex, a place where novices rarely walk and priests seldom linger. Her lanterns are the least seen, but the hardest to tend. The great ceremonial lamps, stored for festivals, long unused, but never left to decay. She is of low birth, perhaps from a background considered unclean in Edo's rigid hierarchies. Because of this, her labor is confined to the shadows. She scrubs soot thick as tar from lantern bases. She cleans oil jars blackened from decades of neglect. She prepares wicks that will burn only once a year, during the grand rites of autumn. The air in her workspace is different, heavier, stale, almost metallic. Old oil clings to everything. Her robes are permanently stained. Her hands smell of smoke even after washing. She is not allowed near the main altar, not allowed to ring the shrine bell, not allowed to stand beside the other maidens during ceremonies. But fire does not observe social rank. The moment she lights a lantern, its flame reflects clean and equal in her eyes. Her face softens. Her spine straightens. At night, when she lifts a wick from a jar of dark oil, her hands do not tremble. She knows her place is in the shadows, but she performs her task with the quiet pride of someone who understands that being unseen does not mean being unimportant. Festival after festival, her flames guide thousands. No one knows her name, but every pilgrim walks a path she has illuminated. Her name is Tomoe. She is the senior of the five, not in age, but in trust. She repairs wicks for the ceremonial lantern that must burn before dawn on the day of the shrine's largest festival. This lantern is enormous, a wooden frame as tall as a person, its paper walls thin as breath. It is said that if the flame inside fails, the gods cannot find the path into the human world. Every year, Tomoe prepares it alone. Her robe is spotless, her tools precise, her concentration absolute. Tonight is her final vigil before the festival. She kneels before the lantern as if before a deity, hands folded. The wick is already set, the oil jar already filled. All that remains is the lighting, a moment that aligns centuries of tradition, hours of labor, and the fragile courage of a single human hand. Her fingers tighten on the candle used to transfer the flame. The hall holds its breath. She lights the wick. It sputters, flares, threatens to die, then catches fully, roaring into existence behind the paper walls. The heat washes over her cheeks. Her eyes burn from smoke and relief. She bows deeply, forehead touching the floor. She whispers a prayer, not for herself, not for praise, but for steadiness. Because now, until sunrise, she must guard the flame without blinking. No wind must reach it. No ember must fall. No exhaustion may claim her strength. Hours crawl. Her knees ache. Sweat trickles down her spine, mixing with fine soot. Her arms tremble as she holds the frame steady. But the flame burns. And when dawn breaks, a thin ribbon of sunlight touches the great lantern's paper, turning it pale gold. The festival drums begin outside. Pilgrims gather, priests chant. Tomoe exhales a long, controlled breath that empties her whole chest. The gods have found their path because she held the light. By morning, the 5 maidens drift from their posts like ghosts released from duty. Yai, the perimeter maiden, peels off wet socks and wrings mud from her hem. Kinu, the apprentice, coughs softly as she folds her warm blanket. Sayo washes her hands in cold water until the soot runs thin as ink. The unnamed flamekeeper disappears into her unseen corner. Tomoe wipes sweat from her brow, bowing once more to the sleeping lantern. Visitors will arrive soon. They will see bright halls, glowing lamps, fresh incense, clean paths. They will admire the beauty without imagining the labor behind it. Most will never know the maidens existed. No records, no monuments, no scrolls preserve their names. Only the flames remember them. Their work was invisible by design. Their exhaustion, swallowed. Their devotion, quiet. Their reward, forgotten. And yet, it was their hands cold, soot-stained, trembling that kept Edo's shrines alive through every night. Their fire illuminated prayers. Their vigilance softened darkness. Their presence shaped the city more gently than any samurai or merchant ever could. When the last flame of the night finally dies, a faint wisp of smoke curls upward, dissolving into morning light. For a breath, it lingers in the sunlit air, a final trace of women whose names the world never learned. The maidens step outside the shrine gates. The city begins its morning roar. The lantern hall cools. The wicks turn black. The day takes over. But the night remembers. The night always remembers.